George, I don't know how you'd compare this. I'm sure you've been watching the Final Four, but can you imagine? You're like the school, your gym holds like 5,000, maybe 10,000. Next thing you know, you're playing bigger arenas, and then now you're going to go to the Final Four, and there's going to be 80,000 people, and you're playing in a football stadium. I wouldn't even know how to compare that, this type of atmosphere to baseball.
Well, it's interesting. The way that I would kind of bring it to baseball is when I first pitched in the playoffs my first time in 2012. You pitch through the regular season, you go through all the games and situations that you're used to being in, and then everything starts getting magnified tremendously with people in the stands and views from the TVs and all the cameras, and the adrenaline kicks up a tick every round that you go through, and you get a little bit more anxious, a little bit more nervous. And then once you get in the game, where the game starts in basketball, I would imagine that it all goes away and it's business as usual.
Well, you know, it's so funny about you when looking at this show. So we are the #1 podcast in Major League Baseball. We're approaching 7 million downloads.
Congratulations.
It's been crazy, the growth that we have had. And you were, since we first launched audio, video, you were our first. People look back and go, wait a minute, you had a Giant as your first guest? Yes, a World Series champion Giant was our very first ever guest. We've always wanted to thank you for that. And it's amazing the greatness of what we've had on, everybody in the game of baseball that we've had on video, since we've had everybody audio. Now we've basically had everybody video, but you were the first.
Well, first of all, congratulations on all your guys' success, and thanks for having me back.
Nah, it's great. Obviously, this time of year, it's a tradition, especially back in the day when the American League didn't play the National League and Interleague play. Some of us are old enough to remember that. But always the Bay Bridge Series, when the teams head north, as they say, and now you get, whether it's at the Coliseum or it's now over at Oracle Park, and you put the regular uniforms on. Just what is that transition like as a player to leave the thin air, to leave Arizona, and come back to the Bay and know, yes, the real thing is about to happen?
Well, there's so much excitement in it. I mean, you just mentioned it, getting out of Arizona, getting out of where you've been, that environment for the last 6-8 weeks, however long it's been, whenever you get down there. And it's all kind of building yourself up until this Bay Bridge series where you come back. And although they are exhibition games, you're playing under the bright lights, not the Arizona lights, the ones that are the LEDs all around the stadium. You add those 2 decks back in, and just being in that environment again gets you really excited for what's coming in the next few days. So you get your final tune-up in. You hope that it goes well so you can end your spring on a good note and head into the regular season with the snowball rolling in the right direction.
As a pitcher, we know in the thin air, things are a little bit different. You don't get as much break. There's not as much spin. Just how much, I mean, everybody loves spring training. We all love going down. You have, you get your sausage, your beer, you get a tan, but for as a pitcher, how nice is it to get back to sea level, to get back to the thicker air and everything starts spinning a little bit? Because a lot of people don't understand. It's just the ball doesn't move in Arizona the way it moves in other places.
Well, I love playing golf in those thinner air places where you hit the ball forever. But, we were in 2012, we were in Colorado, where Jeremy Affeldt had pitched, in the World Series for them, where they got smoked by Javi Lopez and the Red Sox. But yeah, we got there, and he goes, "Hey man, that get me over breaking ball that you throw kind of sometimes? Don't throw it here. Everything is a 2-strike breaking ball. There's no friction. There's no resistance on the ball. It's like playing on the moon." And while Arizona is not as bad, it is a good tune-up, because as you start getting more confident in your delivery as you go through the spring, you start fine-tuning that release point of where you want a 2-strike breaking ball to be, where you want a crisp in-zone breaking ball to be, what the 2-seam is going to do, what a cutter is going to do. So you have to be really cognizant of what the ball is going to do, and you really have to finish your pitches as obviously as a guy who's on the mound throwing the ball. You really have to get out in front and make sure that you're finishing all your pitches so you can impart that good late spin on them.
I remember it was one day, we were doing our shows before spring training games, Monday through Friday, and it was in the morning. I'm sitting there watching MLB Network, and they were going through the National League West, and they put up this graphic of all the different guys the Giants assigned. And I recently I emceed the Santa Clara County baseball banquet. We had Mitch Haniger there, Jock Peterson there, honoring them. and knowing that Mitch was coming over. Mitch killed us for years, Mariners and the A's. But I saw all, our guy Sean Manaea. I saw all these different guys that the Giants brought in on this graphic, and I went, it's kind of like what Billy Beane would do back in the day, and Farhan obviously learned from Billy is, you bring in these guys, and if they have good years, you could have a good team. And I know Haniger's going to start on the IL, but when you just look at, guys with experience, things go the right way. I know everybody's talking Dodgers, everybody's talking Padres, and even Diamondbacks. A lot of people like, and I like the Diamondbacks. I think they're young and athletic. They're going to be interesting. But if things go the Giants' way with all these players, they got some experience, could be very interesting. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think that going into spring training, when everyone was reporting, the main thing that the fans and people wanted to see was that big splash free agent. And obviously, the two of them that we were kind of working with, they kind of evaded us a little bit, signing elsewhere. But the guys that we brought in, when you take away that initial thought of a big splash superstar, have made this team significantly better. And you've really seen that in the last 10 days. And I'm a huge believer of the Giant way is pitching and good defense, which defense was a little bit shaky last year. I expect them to come out and play better on that front this year. But the pitching is going to be what always, in my opinion, has the success for this team. But you've got some guys in the middle of that lineup now that can really do some damage. It's not going to be worrying about maybe a 2-run game or a 3-2 game, 2-1, whatever it may be like that we've had in the past. These guys can go out there, and there's depth in this lineup. You have guys who can get on base. You have guys who can hit the ball for power all over the ballpark. Haniger hit 40 home runs a few years back. Jock can put the ball out of the ballpark pretty much any swing of the bat. So if these guys come and start the regular season doing what they are capable of, there's no reason why this Giants team can't make a little bit of noise. And they play the Dodgers and the Padres pretty tough throughout the regular season. I know we played them less this year, which is going to inevitably be in our favor if we're playing some other teams who aren't quite as good and the team does what they're supposed to.
Now, I got to tell you, what you just said, it's so similar to what we always talk about, because obviously you look at Oracle and the Coliseum, they're only 13 miles from each other across the bay. Big, cold ballparks. And when you look at those teams in the 70s, the A's that won the World Series in 72, 73, 74, you look at all the success whenever the A's have been good. It's two things, pitching and defense. I know it's not sexy to everybody. You look at the Giants. Giants won 3 World Series, pitching and defense. We can talk hitting all we want, but run prevention is the name of the game. And when the A's have been great and when the Giants have been great, it's pitching and defense.
I think that when you look back at the 2021 season, the Giants won 107 games. And when I reflect on that and I think of what really went right, you had a team that had an unbelievable staff, and the bullpen really kicked in when it was supposed to and was locked down the second half of the season pretty much. Then you had defense that was fantastic, and the offense was significantly better than it was last year and the year prior to 2021 in that shortened season. But you had career years from Brandon Crawford, from Buster Posey. But with all that offense, I still am a believer that the reason why they won 107 games and were able to fend off the Dodgers and win the division inevitably to fall to them in those 5 games was the pitching and defense. Though you had starters who were going out from the beginning of the season and taking down those 6-7 innings, giving the bullpen a rest, giving them those extra innings and outings that they were going to need in August and September. Because if you start taking those guys and giving them those outings that you could maybe get out of a starter for another inning early, then they're gassed in August and September and they're not able to make that finishing push. But in 2021, they did everything right. And I really believe that it was pitching and defense that was the big thing for them.
All right. Would you agree that in your career, whether it was San Francisco, Pittsburgh, New York, Cleveland, on your staffs for right-handed pitchers, you knew who had a good pickoff move and who didn't?
Who had a good, like when I was watching on the mound?
Like you knew your teammates, like who's good, who's not, right?
Oh yeah, who had good pickoff moves?
Yeah. So the other team knows too. And where I'm getting at now is now where I've seen the position of the pitch time. We don't want to say clocks. We call it the pitch timer. If I'm one of these runners and I know one of these guys on the mound doesn't have a good pickoff move and it's getting to like 16, 17, 18, I'm gone. I'm just thinking if you're smart. So just take us through as a right-handed pitcher with a bad pickoff move, how just exposed are you going to get this season?
To be honest with you, I don't even think you have to have a bad pickoff move. I think there are so many ways that the pitch timer or clock or whatever you want to call it is going to affect the outcome of at-bats and games. Yeah, if you have a bad pickoff move and you start getting there, especially on younger pitchers who haven't been at the big league level, because when you continue to climb these levels, there is a get-to-know process, especially for your own confidence. You have to go out there and have some good outings. And if you have guys just taking off, stealing bases from you all the time, your focus starts becoming on getting rid of a pitch as opposed to executing it properly. If you're in a 2-strike count and you're looking there and you see 3 on that timer, you're now in a rush and you're not able to execute that with the mental focus that it needs, because in the forefront of your mind, and Scherzer came out and said it yesterday in an interview, I'm looking at that timer every single pitch. And you're talking about a Hall of Famer, and it's taking away from his focus on the mound. But for some of these younger guys who haven't been as established, or guys who are even in a jam, it's going to make a huge difference with where pitches are ending up. And you're going to see more pitches that are supposed to be on plate, off the plate, starting middle to still on plate. And balls are going to be hit all over the yard this year, is my prediction. So you're going to definitely get that offense that the league wanted to create with this pitch timer.
And also the hitters feel rushed. And think about a new hitter. You come up to the big leagues, everything seems like it's going a million miles an hour, and now you get up and the ball's it's like you're in a batting cage. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, so you're going to feel that as the pitcher. You're going to feel that as the hitter too.
No, you absolutely will. I remember watching the first few games of spring training, and the game just felt like it was in fast forward. It's almost like you took the fast forward button and you increased it by like 0.25 or 0.5. Guys were just getting the ball back going. And you just felt it even as a viewer that these guys were having a hard time getting into a rhythm. That's part of the beauty of the game, I think, is watching everything unfold. And now all of it just seems like it's happening so fast.
So what would you do as a pitcher, at least to put like in a scouting report? Would you want to go over, like you get the ball, clock starts, like 5 seconds in, quick over, and then wait for another batter, wait till it gets to like 18, 19, then go over, just to vary the time. So you at least, as we say, put it on the tape to show other teams you're not going to be consistent. You can go over at any time, no matter what the clock says.
So what I would do if I was still playing, and I was a quick worker, I always got the ball, I got back on the mound. But for forever, how you stop a run game is holding the ball. And now they've given you a little bit of an obstacle with holding the ball, but you can still vary it with the ability to step off and throw over. So you won't be able to play the same games that you used to. But I think if guys get the ball and are immediately back on the rubber looking in, you at least give yourself a few more seconds. But what I would do also is I would start calling my own pitches. I'd get on there. I'd call the pitch from what I wanted. And if Buster, for example, had something way different in his mind, then he'd call me off, as opposed to the traditional way of him putting down signs, me shaking to what I want. It's me giving what I want, him shaking it off. We're on the same page. Now I have a lot more time to give the runner on base at least some attention with holding and doing the gimmicky things that you can do to keep guys from stealing bases. But you're gonna see some guys starting to be creative with how they can get around some of these new restrictions.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch, no question. Let's end on this. You guys there tonight in the last game of the preseason, the last Bay Bridge game before we get going on Thursday, going to honor a terrific pitcher, a hell of a guy. We got to know him over here in Oakland, saw him for years, a 3-time World Series champion, closed out a World Series, but Sergio Romo was such a big part of the Giants' success, one of the great Frisbee sliders that we have ever seen. And you always respect him, right? Because he was like everybody else. He was the same size as everybody else, but he had a huge heart, and he battled. And the fact that he was on a lot of great teams. I mean, he's like one of the original openers in Tampa. There's a lot of history with Sergio Romo's career, but honoring tonight with the Giants, you're going to be there. How special is that going to be?
Well, it's going to be great for Sergio. I mean, he's one of those guys that, like you said, he's got a huge heart. He means well for everybody, always willing to lend an ear, always got that smile on his face. And when you put him in between the white lines, the guy was never the biggest in stature, but those cojones he had in big situations were really, really important for the teams that he was on, especially the ones that I was on, I mean, the guy threw an 88-mile-an-hour fastball in a 3-2 count to Miguel Cabrera to end a World Series. So he always went out there and pitched fearless and had ice in his veins and all the things that we've heard about him. But the guy's an unbelievable human being as well. And he means a lot to me as a teammate and a friend. I was just at his wedding in January. We had a great time at his wedding with some of the guys. And it'll be great that he's getting this opportunity to walk it off in a Giants uniform to El Nacho and wearing 54 again. So it'll be a great, great final day for him, taking it in between the white lines in the black and orange.
Yeah, we're happy for him. He's a great guy. And then during the season, I'll be seeing you. Well, we'll want to have you on the program again. But when I'm hosting A's pregame live, you'll be doing Giants pregame live.
That's
so
right.
We'll see you during the season at NBC.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, once again, you were the first guy on video. It would always be special to us. Hey, enjoy the night with all your teammates. You guys had such a great run and truly enjoyed. These are the best times.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for having me.